Welcome to Love Story with Lisa, where I share romantic audio stories. Today, I'll tell you a new love story. He glanced my way and smiled faintly, giving a slight nod. I returned the greeting with a salute. As he walked past me, he spoke one sentence. His voice was cold yet clear and moving. All suffering will eventually pass. I was briefly stunned. I turned to watch the cool, retreating figure disappear. I knew who he was, the ninth prince of this dynasty, Fu Lingxiao. Among all the princes, he was nearly unknown, unbeloved by the emperor. I had seen him a few times at palace banquets. On those occasions he always sat quietly in a corner, unnoticed by anyone. Yet today he was here dressed in full dignity at the great state temple, and the aura around him was completely different from before. Truly, no one in the imperial family was simple. This ninth prince too was merely biding his time and waiting. I entered the abbot's meditation chamber and conversed with him for a long while. The restlessness inside me gradually calmed. When I left the meditation chamber, I felt as though I was becoming yet more unhurried and settled within myself. I descended by a small path along the mountainside. The scenery was serene, a cool breeze blowing gently, when suddenly several dozen black-clad figures appeared overhead. They immediately engaged my bodyguards, and one of them rushed straight toward me. The greater the danger, the calmer I became. My mind immediately calculated an escape route. Yet I knew no martial arts and had no way to flee. If they captured me, I had no idea what fate awaited me. The black-clad figure drew closer and closer. At precisely that moment, Fu Lingxiao suddenly appeared, blocking the way in front of me. His body moved swift as the wind. Each strike was lethal. In an instant he had cut down the entire group of black-clad assailants. Blood misted over that strikingly handsome face, making his features all the more startling and chilling to look upon. I clenched my hands. This was the first time I had ever seen so many people die right before my eyes. My stomach lurched with nausea. Fu Lingxiao gently tilted his body to block my line of sight, his voice deep and warm yet distant. "Do not look. It would dirty your eyes." I squinted at him with suspicion. "Ninth Prince, why would you appear here?" The coincidence seemed too unlikely. I could not help but feel on guard. Fu Lingxiao's expression remained tranquil. His cold aloofness was unchanged, as though the man who had just killed without blinking was not him at all. He looked at me and smiled gently. Just now I was performing memorial rites for my mother in the grove on the other side. I heard the commotion here and came over. I was taken aback. "Your mother?" Fu Lingxiao nodded. A faint ironic smile appeared in his eyes. My mother was of low birth and could not be interred in the imperial mausoleum, so I buried her here. Today is the anniversary of her death. Every year I come to pay my respects. His gaze was too clear, without the slightest turbidity, and I suddenly felt ashamed and lowered my head. "I have been terribly rude. I should not have mentioned what grieves you." He saved my life, and yet I had suspected him. Fu Lingxiao shook his head slightly. "Never mind." I took a deep breath, stood with dignity, and bowed respectfully. "You are my savior. Though this unworthy one harbored suspicion, I will certainly repay this kindness in the future." Fu Lingxiao's tone was mild. "You are the first person who has ever looked at me with a gentle gaze. Saving you was merely a matter of convenience." I looked up in slight puzzlement. "When did I look at you gently?" He seemed to perceive my confusion and patiently explained. "My mother was only a lowly palace maid. Others look at me with eyes full of disgust, as if I were something filthy. Only just now, outside the abbot's chamber, your gaze at me was clear and without contempt. I am genuinely grateful. I looked straight into his eyes. Deep within them seemed to lie a profound, hidden pain. I gently opened my mouth and returned to him the very words he had said to me. As you said, all suffering will eventually pass. Fu Lingxiao's eyes curved upward. He smiled faintly. My thanks for the auspicious words. He smiled beautifully, a smile of pure, untarnished clarity. A person so often scorned by the world and yet still capable of holding that smile. How resolute must his heart be? My gaze slowly cooled. I glanced at my bodyguards. I needed to thoroughly investigate who had the audacity to send assassins after me. The leader of the bodyguards stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Young miss, these black-clad figures are all death soldiers. Your subordinates have not yet been able to determine whose household they belong to. Please grant us a little more time. We will surely investigate and avenge you. I nodded slightly. Back at home, I recounted everything clearly to my parents. Both were enraged. My father struck the table a hard blow, his voice thundering with fury. Someone dares attempt to harm my treasure in broad daylight. This matter must be investigated thoroughly. My mother, whose temperament was usually gentle, heard that I had nearly been assassinated and erupted in fury. Those scoundrels, they must be investigated clearly, and vengeance must be had for my child. I also told them that the 9th prince himself had saved me. My father was briefly astonished. The 9th prince has always been quietly unassuming, and today he saved your life. I must properly express my gratitude. Afterward I had people prepare generous gifts and sent them to the 9th prince's household in thanks. 3 days later, my father traced the trail and discovered that the mastermind behind the hired assassins was Nanwu. The 9th prince also sent word confirming that it was indeed Nanwu who had bribed the assassins to attempt murder. My father immediately gathered all the evidence and prepared to submit a memorial, petitioning His Majesty to issue a decree executing Nanwu and simultaneously condemning Shenxian for his crimes. But at that very moment, news arrived. The Empress Dowager had visited the great state temple to pray for blessings, when she was unexpectedly attacked by an assassin. Nanwu had thrown herself in the way and taken a heavy slash for the Empress Dowager, sustaining a serious wound. The Empress Dowager was deeply moved and petitioned the Emperor to issue a decree elevating Nanwu to the rank of Princess of Peace and to decree her official status as Shenxian's legal wife. Hearing this, I could not help but harbor doubts. Was the Empress Dowager truly attacked by an assassin? Could this have been staged by Nanwu and Shenxian? My father was so furious that he smashed his favorite tea set. He too could not believe Nanwu was so fortunate, and immediately had people investigate carefully. The result of the investigation, the assassination attempt on the Empress Dowager, had nothing whatsoever to do with Nanwu or Shenxian. Nanwu truly had been fortunate. She had by chance saved the Empress Dowager's life. I stood silently in the pavilion watching the fish swimming freely in the pond, scattering a few grains of fish feed with a light flick of my wrist, my heart full of vexation. Now that Nanwu was under the Empress Dowager's protection, there was no telling what she might do to deal with me in the future. My mother sat beside me, her expression full of worry, both furious and indignant. Husband, we cannot simply let this go. Nanwu dared send assassins to kill our daughter. She must pay a price. My father was dressed formally, his gaze was deep and cold. I will go to the palace myself and report everything to His Majesty. Only I cannot be certain how His Majesty will handle it. If His Majesty will not stand up for us, we will seek justice for you honor ourselves. My father brought all the evidence into the palace and submitted the memorial, laying everything out before the emperor. But the emperor merely pronounced with mild disinterest, Nanwu inadvertently harmed your beloved daughter, but her saving the Empress Dowager's life is a fact. I have already rewarded her. As punishment, she is to remain confined at home in repentance for 1 month. My father returned to the household. His face was grim, and the cold aura emanating from him made everyone nearby tremble. He recounted to me and my mother every word the emperor had spoken in the palace. My mother shook with fury. Her voice had gone hoarse from outrage, inadvertent, with all that clear evidence laid before him. To call it inadvertent is such gross favoritism that it truly chills the heart. My father clenched his fist, his voice heavy. Nanwu is the Empress Dowager's benefactress who saved her life. Both the Empress Dowager and the Emperor have made up their minds to protect her. In the future, if we wish to act, we must calculate very carefully and ensure everything is completely airtight. Nanwu was gravely wounded and unconscious from throwing herself in front of that blade for the Empress Dowager, and did not step outside for over a month. The Emperor's so-called punishment was nothing but a joke to the world. Shenqian, seemingly aware that we had already uncovered the truth, kept close to Nanwu day and night in ceaseless, airtight vigilance, not a crack to be found. My father had no way of finding an opportunity to act. After a month, Nanwu's wounds had completely healed. The Empress Dowager issued a decree summoning me into the palace. My mother anxiously grasped my hand tightly. Why is the Empress Dowager summoning you for no reason? She must have been poisoned by things Nanwu said. I want to accompany you. I gently embraced my mother, my gaze lowered, but the Empress Dowager had specifically summoned me by name alone. If I defied the decree, who knew what crimes she would bring down on us? Mother, please set your heart at ease. Since the Empress Dowager has openly summoned me into the palace, she cannot openly kill me. At worst I will merely suffer a little hardship. My father stepped forward, his gaze resolute. I will go to the palace with you, honor. I have matters to bring before the emperor as well. Even if the emperor is foolish, he cannot allow me to simply die in the palace. My mother heard this and only reluctantly settled her heart. In the end, I went to the palace together with my father. I followed the Empress Dowager's palace maids to the Hall of Compassion, while my father went straight to the Hall of Mental Cultivation. The Empress Dowager made me wait outside the main hall for the space of 1 incense stick, then finally summoned me into the main audience chamber. The Empress Dowager sat on the phoenix throne, radiating a stern, imposing dignity. I also caught sight of Nanwu. She was seated just to the left of the Empress Dowager, smiling gently as she looked at me, her eyes brimming with triumph, as though mocking me for overestimating my own strength. I bent my knee and saluted, my voice respectful. Your subject daughter pays respects to Her Highness the Empress Dowager. May Your Highness enjoy all blessings and peace. The Empress Dowager slowly raised her gaze and looked at me. Her eyes were cold and sharp. She suddenly struck the arm of the phoenix throne with a sharp blow and spoke in a flat but stern voice, "Kneel." My gaze was calm. I had long since anticipated that the Empress Dowager would find some pretext to make things difficult, and I unhurriedly knelt. The Empress Dowager looked at me coldly. Nanwu is now a princess. You are merely a woman abandoned by her husband. Her rank is far higher than yours. Why did you not salute when you saw her? I lowered my eyes and would not meet the Empress Dowager's gaze. Your subject daughter was suddenly startled to see the princess, whom she had not encountered in so long. I now respectfully pay my respects to the princess. Nanwu immediately stepped forward, her voice sweet and gentle. Her Highness the Empress Dowager, Miss Yen is someone who understands propriety. I believe she did not intentionally show disrespect to the imperial family. Please, Your Highness, do not be angry. The Empress Dowager said with a cold laugh, "Fortunately, Nanwu intercedes for you. But I have heard that you once relied on your authority as mistress to bully and oppress her day after day, going so far as to cruelly destroy the unborn child in her womb. Yan Lingyuan, your crimes are worthy of 10,000 deaths. Nanwu is the princess personally conferred by His Majesty. She is a member of the imperial house. Her child too is of imperial bloodline. Yet your father had the audacity to enter the palace and accuse her of sending assassins against you. The Yen family's hearts are truly vicious. Nanwu is gentle and virtuous. She has never contested anything with you. Yet you have narrow-minded hidden malice, secretly harming others. You deserve to be exterminated. Someone come, for the crime of insolence against imperial authority. Yan Lingyuan is to receive 200 strokes." Nanwu smiled even more gently, her voice soft as running water. "Many thanks to Her Highness the Empress Dowager for standing up for me." Two large, stout matrons immediately stepped forward and gripped my two arms. Nanwu looked at me, smiling with triumph and arrogance. I struggled with all my strength but was powerless against them. Just then, the chief eunuch at the emperor's side quickly entered and bowed. "Your Highness the Empress Dowager, His Majesty has summoned the Grand Tutor's eldest daughter to the Hall of Mental Cultivation." The Empress Dowager narrowed her eyes, a flash of displeasure shot through their depths. "Why?" The eunuch replied respectfully, "The Grand Tutor has been discussing matters with His Majesty in the Hall of Mental Cultivation for some time. He suddenly cried out in pain, broke into a cold sweat, his life in critical danger, and he wishes to see his eldest daughter one last time." I clenched both hands tightly, my heart ached sharply. My father had used this method to save me again. The Empress Dowager's expression darkened, her gaze as she looked at me seemed to want to eat me alive, yet she apparently found it inconvenient to openly defy the emperor. After a long pause she flicked her sleeve coldly. "Go." Then. "The Grand Tutor has worn himself out in service to the nation. Now he wishes to see his daughter one last time. No one may obstruct that." I slowly rose to my feet. From kneeling so long, my legs had gone numb, and I nearly fell. Gritting my teeth, I steadied myself and followed the eunuch out of the Hall of Compassion. Before I walked too far, I still heard the Empress Dowager's voice drop to a soft, soothing tone. "Nanwu, do not grieve. This palace will seek justice for you. You have suffered such injustice here. This palace will not let that woman off easily. She will certainly pay dearly for what she has done." Nanwu's voice choked with emotion and gratitude. "This concubine thanks Her Highness for her gracious concern. But after all, Miss Yen is the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter. I beg Your Highness to spare her life in consideration of that." The Empress Dowager gave a cold laugh and flung out her arm to smash a teacup. "The Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter, so what? In the end she is still a woman abandoned by her husband. She dared to bully you, she must pay the price." What a fine Empress Dowager, unable to distinguish right from wrong. I knew all those words were deliberately said so I could hear them. I followed the eunuch to the Hall of Mental Cultivation and was escorted inside. The moment I stepped in, I saw my father lying on the divan, his face chalk-white, his breathing weak. Several imperial physicians were treating him at his side. My eyes instantly reddened. With no time even to salute the emperor, I rushed to kneel beside the divan and said, my voice choked, "Father, your daughter has been unfilial." The head of the Imperial Medical Academy gently consoled me. "Miss Yen, please do not grieve too deeply. We attended in time. The Grand Tutor is in danger but will not lose his life. He needs only to rest and recover." I quickly wiped my tears, continually expressing gratitude to the head of the medical academy. Then turned and respectfully knelt before the figure robed in yellow golden brocade. I thank His Majesty for saving my father's life. Even though inwardly I was grinding my teeth with hatred, I dared not let the slightest resentment show on my face. I could only do my utmost to express gratitude. This was imperial authority above all. Other people's lives were worth nothing in this world. The emperor gave me an indifferent glance. The capital says the Grand Tutor's daughter is dignified and gentle, and that her face could topple cities. Now that we have met, her face is indeed beautiful. A pity her temperament is not what was rumored. You have prompted your father time and again to come to the palace with accusations. But bearing in mind your filial piety, we forgive your crime today. I quietly listened to that meaningless talk, waited until he finished, and then kowtowed in gratitude. Afterward my father and I returned home. My mother burst into tears the moment she saw my father's condition. I sat silently beside the bed. A wave of exhausted helplessness washed over me inside. I did not know what I could still do to avenge my father, nor what I could do to avenge myself. The two most exalted people in this world were deliberately making things difficult for the Yen family. What more could we do? Not long after, word arrived that Nanwa had inadvertently offended the 9th prince, who ordered her punished with 30 strokes. She lost the very child she had risked her life to protect for the Empress Dowager. Shortly after that, news came that she had been insolent toward the 3rd prince's consort, and was ordered to have her arm broken. I could not help but laugh faintly, a smile full of bitterness and sarcasm. Others could openly and righteously deal with Nanwu, but my father, as Grand Tutor, could not easily act himself, because both the Emperor and the Empress Dowager despised us. They were willing to protect Nanwu without any pretense at all, while my father, who served as a court minister, had no recourse. The moment my father acted and was caught at even the smallest weakness, they would surely not let the Yen family off. Inside my heart resentment accumulated. Its roots grew ever deeper. The 3rd prince's consort Song Yusin came storming furiously to our household. She dragged me into a room, shut the windows tight, and said with sharp cold eyes, "So you let that woman off with mercy before, and now? She nearly took your life." I looked at her calmly. At that time she had only said insulting words. I had already punished her for that. Her crime was not yet worthy of death. Afterward, when she hired assassins to kill me, I too wanted to have her killed, but Shinxian kept too close a watch on her. She never left the Marquis's household for even half a step. I could find no opportunity. Song Yusin laughed coldly. "A pretty speech. I will accept your thanks." I replied with measured grace, "My thanks to the 3rd prince's consort for venting my anger on my behalf." Song Yusin gave a small, slightly contorted sniff of embarrassment. "Who said this princess consort did it for you? She dared be insolent to this princess consort. Breaking her arm was already getting off lightly." I only smiled and did not move to expose her. I gently reminded her, "As for the other concubines on the 3rd prince's side, you should also be careful. Do not let what happened to me happen to you." Song Yusin's expression cooled. "If he dares let a concubine wife harm me, I will strip his hide." I listened to her and raised my brows in a cool smile. "It seems things between the two of you are progressing rather well." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Song Yusin flared up. Immediately flushed red, spun around, and bolted out of the room, the picture of someone fleeing for their life. My father finally rallied, but his body was weak. He had to recuperate at home for a full month. The emperor sent down a decree with many gifts, but no one in our household touched them. We left them to gather dust in the storeroom. Not long after, a war report came from the frontier. The Xiongnu had invaded the Great Xia from the south once more. The old emperor named Shen Qian the grand general of mighty military prowess and dispatched him to punish the Xiongnu. Shen Qian left the capital, and fearing Nanwu would be left behind to be dealt with by me, he brought her along. With the two eyesores gone from the capital, my heart suddenly lightened. I settled at home peacefully, not wanting to venture outside. Then upheaval came to the capital. The first prince's rebellion failed. The emperor issued a decree and had him executed. The other princes died one by one in the struggle for the throne until finally only the ninth prince, Fu Lingxiao, and the third prince remained. The old emperor's health declined rapidly. In the end he abdicated in favor of Fu Lingxiao and passed away. The Empress Dowager became the Grand Empress Dowager, shut her doors to visitors, and settled into her old age. When I heard the news that the old emperor had died, the elation in my heart could not be put into words. Such a muddled emperor, the sooner he died, the better. Fu Lingxiao ascended the throne and proclaimed himself emperor. He employed ruthless tactics and bloody purges to eliminate a group of high ministers. The court was filled with trembling fear. Who would have imagined that the quiet, unassuming ninth prince would act with such decisive ferocity? The new emperor enfeoffed the third prince as the Prince of Peace, commanded him and his consort to proceed to his designated territory, and decreed that they were not to return to the capital without being summoned. Song Yusin came to bid me farewell. I gave her an illuminated safe passage talisman lock. The chaos of the realm gradually settled. The new emperor Fu Lingxiao proclaimed a call for worthy men, placed importance on those of humble birth who had long been suppressed. My father no longer had to wait upon an old emperor of volatile temperament. The weight seemed to lift from his whole person, except that Nanwu was still a thorn in our side. She had followed Shen Qian to the frontier. I had no opportunity to act. Half a year later, news arrived that Shen Qian had achieved a great victory over the Xiongnu. The name of the war god resounded throughout the Great Xia once more. Officials and common people alike rejoiced and sang his praises. I sat hugging little Todu in the pavilion, basking in the sun, occasionally scattering a few morsels to watch the carp below. Hearing the news, the hand stroking Todu paused. A smile briefly crossed my face too, but when I thought of Shen Qian, it turned bitter again. As a person he is worthless in every way. Only his ability on the battlefield is beyond reproach. A month later, Shen Qian returned in triumph, mounted on a tall horse, clad in shining silver armor, his whole person radiating lethal martial power. The streets were packed. People jostled and craned their necks to look up at him, their eyes burning with adoration. The unmarried young ladies, cheeks flushed pink, stared fixedly at Shen Qian and whispered softly, "Marquis Shen is truly worthy of his title as war god, awesome and imposing, his bearing outstanding, having driven the Xiongnu to flight in a single campaign, too afraid to invade again." I happened to be out for a stroll that day, and went to a restaurant to eat since I was hungry, only to catch this very scene. Shen Qian's gaze swept to where I was, for just a moment, and then moved away with cool indifference. Behind him was a horse carriage. The wind stirred the curtain, revealing the person inside to be Nanwu. The corner of my mouth curved up slightly, my spirits were bright. I ate several more bites of pastry. Very good, now that they had returned, the old debts could finally be settled. The new emperor Fu Lingxiao was not a foolish man like his predecessor. This time I wanted Nanwu dead. Fu Lingxiao held a banquet in the palace to feast Shen Qian and the returning generals. The Shen Marquis household was for a time showered with glory and honor throughout the capital. Nanwu too rose on their account. from a lowly concubine wife to the official first wife of the Marquis's household, along with the title of Princess of Peace. The titled ladies and daughters of the aristocratic family seemed to forget that she had once been a concubine wife with no standing whatsoever, and competed to befriend and flatter her. I received an invitation from the Shin household. Nanwa had opened her doors and invited everyone to the Shin Marquis's household 3 days hence. She had barely just returned and already she was eager to show off. Very well, I would personally tear apart that false mask of gentleness of hers, and we would see who in the capital still dared keep company with someone who kills, being first wife of the Marquis's household. So what? Being Princess of Peace, so what? With the late Emperor and the Grand Empress Dowager no longer there to shield her, I could act freely. 3 days later, I carefully dressed and made up, wearing a light purple long dress, a small flower of sweet blue adorning my brow, with makeup light yet brilliantly beautiful enough to topple a city. Seeing me thus, Daisy widened her eyes. Young miss dressed like this will certainly be the most dazzling person in the crowd. I curled my lips slightly in a smile, got into the carriage, and made my way to the Shin Marquis's household. I had once lived here for more than half a year. Stepping inside now, my heart was completely calm. In the flower hall, quite a few ladies and daughters were already gathered, chatting cheerfully. When they saw me appear, the sound of talking immediately ceased all at once. Everyone's eyes moved to me with searching, inscrutable looks. One young lady could not restrain herself and spoke up with a sneer. "Miss Yen, I heard you and Madame Shin were at odds, and that you often oppressed her. How dare you come here today to attend this banquet? Are you not afraid she will retaliate? That Miss Yen, abandoned by the war god Lord. Doesn't she know to stay home and recite sutras and eat vegetarian in repentance? What face does she have to come out here and admire flowers with us? There isn't a single woman here who was abandoned by her husband the way she was." Everyone was competing to make things difficult for me in order to flatter Nanwu. I walked slowly forward, my expression serene, not the least bit angry. This is how the world is, whichever foot smells fragrant, people line up to sniff it. I had long since grown accustomed. I smiled faintly. I came to present Madame Shen with a gift. The hostess has not yet appeared. This theater cannot begin yet. I unhurriedly chose a seat and settled in. Everyone was momentarily intrigued by my words, looking at me in curiosity. What kind of gift was Miss Yen preparing for Madame Shen? I only smiled and did not answer. Just as everyone was straining with curiosity, Nanwu finally made her undulating entrance. She wore a long, gorgeous dress. Her hair was pinned with an abundance of jade and pearl ornaments. Around her neck, ears, and wrists gleamed gold, silver, and jewelry, as if determined to announce to the world that she was the happiest person alive. The titled ladies and daughters competed to stand and greet her. Nanwu smiled gently in reply, her manner leisured and graceful. She sat in the main seat and looked at me. "Miss Yen, it has been half a year since we last met, yet you are still as unbothered as ever, not deigning to acknowledge anyone. I hear you have yet to remarry. I wonder what man of great renown and distinction you are looking for now that you have been abandoned by the Lord? If you cannot find one, this lady could take charge for you. I am acquainted with quite a few brave warriors from the frontier. I could introduce one to your consideration." Everyone chimed in at once. "That's right, Miss Yen, you are no longer young. Do not be too choosy, lest in the end you find no one to marry." I raised my eyes slightly, my voice was cool and flat. "I hear your second child is gone, and you still have not conceived again. As the mistress of the Shin household, you should be concerned with continuing the family line for the Lord. It might be better to take in a few more concubines on his behalf. Nanwa's expression briefly shifted. She clenched her teeth, looked at me steadily, and said, "That is nothing for Miss Yen to trouble herself about. I hear you have prepared a gift for me. What is it?" Seeing the moment had ripened, I lightly clapped my hands. Several maids stepped out and laid upon the table all the evidence that my father and Fu Lingxiao had gathered at such painstaking effort, spread out before the full gathering of ladies and daughters filling the flower hall. My gaze swept across everyone. My voice was unhurried. Just before I had gone to the great state temple to pray for blessings, Madame Shen had bribed a gang of death soldiers to attempt to take my life. I had never done anything to wrong her, and yet she acted with such cruelty. Ladies and daughters present, can you truly bring yourselves to befriend someone who kills like this? The assembled ladies and daughters heard this and looked in shock at the evidence before them. Every single one of them widened their eyes and showed disbelief. Is this true? Did she really send someone to assassinate Miss Yen? Nanwa's face went instantly white, but she forced down her panic and hastily spoke in a trembling voice. Do not listen to her nonsense. How could I have sent someone to assassinate her? Do not be deceived by her. I laughed coldly. The evidence is laid right before you. What is there left for you to deny? Ladies and daughters present, befriend Madame Shen at your own caution. If on some day you inadvertently offend her, I fear she will send someone to assassinate you as well. I am already terrified for myself. The assembled ladies and daughters heard those words and their faces all went white. They exchanged glances with Nanwu, and someone spoke. The evidence is right before our eyes. Can you still deny it? We never imagined you were such a person. Nanwa panicked and quickly sent servants to summon Shen Xian while still loudly insisting to the crowd, I truly did not do this. I am the Princess of Peace conferred by the late Emperor himself. How dare you haphazardly accuse me of a crime? Even if I were the Lord's wife, or a princess, that status does not give me the right to kill people at will. Even the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter you dared to harm. Who else would you not dare to harm? We have our own eyes to judge whether the evidence is genuine or false. Nanwa slowly began to lose her composure, furiously staring at me. Yan Lingyuan, why do you humiliate me like this? These events clearly happened half a year ago. If you had evidence, why did you not bring it out at the time? Why wait until now? The Lord has just returned in triumph from battle, and now you are in a rush to fabricate accusations against me. What exactly is your purpose? Previously you also caused the loss of my child. Now do you want to take my life as well? All eyes in the hall immediately focused on me. My expression did not change and my voice was calm, because half a year ago you still had someone backing you. My father held the evidence but was pressured from above. He dared not make it a large matter and could only swallow his grievance. But I was not willing to watch the ladies and daughters present be deceived by that false mask of gentleness and benevolence, which is why I brought this evidence out. Otherwise I fear that ladies would not sleep easy at night. Even the Grand Tutor dared not make a scene, who is backing Nanwu. One need not even say it and it is clear. Without explicitly naming names. It was more than obvious enough. Madame Shen may have had powerful backing, so today even if no one dared openly offend her, no one would dare keep close to her anymore either. I looked around at everyone, seeing the complex expressions on each face. My goal had been achieved. The corners of my eyes curved up slightly. I rose unhurriedly and prepared to leave. Killing requires paying with one's life. My father had once again submitted all the evidence before the emperor, and this time the person sitting on the dragon throne was Fu Lingxiao. A portion of that evidence had been uncovered by Fu Lingxiao himself. Surely he would handle it fairly. At that very moment, a small palace eunuch entered with a stern expression. His voice rang out as he proclaimed the imperial decree. Everyone in the hall quickly sank to their knees, all of them puzzled as to why the emperor would issue a decree at precisely this moment. The eunuch opened the imperial edict and read aloud in a ringing voice. After hearing it read, the flower hall fell deathly silent. In every mind echoed the contents of the edict. Nanwu had once sent assassins to kill Yan Lingyuan, the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter. At the time it was by chance that we happened to be passing by and saved Yan Lingyuan's life. Now, by special decree, Nanwu's title of princess is stripped away. She is to be punished by imprisonment in the great prison. So all the evidence Miss Yan presented is true. That Nanwu is truly vicious beyond measure. Two officials of the Court of Judicial Review stepped forward and immediately bound Nanwu. Nanwu was terrified and shaking. Her beautiful face had gone pallid as paper. No, I did not. There must be some mistake. I did not do that thing. I was also momentarily stunned. I had not expected Fu Lingxiao to publicly announce Nanwu's crimes before everyone in such a forthright manner. I had thought he would handle her quietly behind the scenes. After all, Shen Qian had just returned in great triumph. And Nanwu was the person Shen Qian loved. My gaze settled on Nanwu, watching her descend almost into madness. I gave a cold laugh. You too are doubting the emperor's imperial decree, Nanwu screamed with crazed shaking of her head. I want to see the Lord. Let me see the Lord. Very quickly after that she was dragged away. The flower appreciation banquet had not even begun when it dissolved into farce. The assembled ladies and daughters looked at me once through before departing the Shen Marquis's household one after another. From beginning to end Shen Qian had not appeared. A trace of puzzlement flickered in my eyes. Was Shen Qian not deeply in love with Nanwu? Nanwu had been taken away and he had not come out to stop it. This was entirely unlike his usual behavior. But I did not think too deeply on it. I turned and prepared to leave. Shen Qian suddenly appeared and blocked my path. His tall frame blocked out all the sunlight before me. I frowned slightly, moved to go around him. He blocked the way again. He looked down at me, his strikingly handsome face wearing an expression of guilt and regret, his voice slightly hoarse. Lingyuan, can we find somewhere else to talk? A few of the ladies and daughters who had not gone far saw this scene. All their gazes converged on us. I had no wish to entangle myself with Shen Qian. My voice was flat and cold. Please, Lord, do not address me like that. Between us there is nothing left to say. A shadow of pain flitted through Shen Qian's gaze. I did not bother to look further, and stepped out of the Shen Marquis's household with measured strides. The onlookers outside all watched with avid interest. The capital was quickly alight again with all sorts of gossip. Marquis Shen was deeply devoted to the Yan family's eldest daughter. He had openly expressed his feelings and wished to win back her heart. I heard those rumors and only smiled with contempt. What Shen Qian was thinking had nothing to do with me. In this entire lifetime I had no wish to have anything more to do with him. Fu Lingxiao had done me a great service. It was inconvenient for me to simply go to the palace at random to thank him, so I mentioned it to my father and asked him to convey my thanks and send gifts. My father brought back for me an authority token and a small vial of poison, saying, "This is what His Majesty has granted you. This token permits you to go to the great prison and see Nanwu. This vial of medicine, if you wish, you can force her to drink it, or if you choose not to use it, you may leave her hands clean. She attempted murder and failed. The Court of Judicial Review will seek justice for you in your stead." Hearing this, My heart trembled slightly, my eyes stared fixedly at the objects in my father's hands. Did His Majesty truly say this? My father nodded, placing the token and the poison into my hands. A smile finally appeared in his eyes. This great enmity has been avenged. His Majesty is truly a wise emperor. I held those two objects. Inside my heart swirled 1,000 indescribable feelings. I only felt that the debt I owed the sovereign was growing ever deeper. My mother nearby looked at me with worry. "You honor. It seems His Majesty treats you very differently indeed." I shook my head. His Majesty is a wise emperor. If someone else were in that position, they would do the same. Clutching the token and the poison, I went to the great prison. Sure enough, no one hindered me. I walked straight through as though through an uninhabited land, until I stood before Nanwu. The prison was damp, dark, and rancid. Flies hummed and the stench was overwhelming. I wore a cloth mask over my nose and mouth and stood outside the iron bars. Nanwu's clothing was already filthy and torn, all her jewelry was gone, her whole person was bedraggled, her face was drawn and haggard to a frightening degree. The moment she saw me, she lunged forward as though possessed, screaming hoarsely, "Yan Lingyuan, what are you doing here? Did you come to laugh at me? Seeing me like this, are you satisfied?" I watched that frenzy of hers, my lips curved upward, my voice calm. "That's right, I am very satisfied. Are you not the person in Shenqian's heart? On the day you were taken away, where was he? He did not come to save you. It has been several days now, he has not even come to take you out. Nanwu, does he still love you?" Nanwu screamed with shaking fury. "It is not like that, he was only held up by matters. He would not abandon me. Yan Lingyuan, do not try to taint what we have between us. The one he loves most will always be me. He will certainly save me. Do not dream of becoming his wife." I watched her cry and rave like a madwoman. My spirits were extremely gleeful. I laughed softly. "You are mistaken. I have not the slightest interest in him. I came here today to send you off on part of your journey. In this life I fear you will never have another chance to see him again. I came out of the goodness of my heart to send you off. You should be grateful." Nanwu's whole body shook. She looked at me in terror. "What are you going to do?" I handed the vial of poison to the prison warden beside me. To have her drink it. The emperor had granted me this opportunity to personally settle this score with my own hands. How could I let it pass? The prison warden had long since received Fu Lingxiao's decree. He opened the cell door and forced Nanwu to drink the medicine. Nanwu's eyes bulged wide. She struggled frantically in frenzy, but a woman's body was no match for two large men. She was pinned down, her mouth pried open and the medicine poured in. Her eyes were full of dying hatred as they stared at me. "Yan Lingyuan, you dare commit unauthorized killing, the emperor will not forgive you. You are truly vicious. In this lifetime you will never have a good death." The corner of Nanwu's mouth seeped blood. Her hands clutched her chest in unbearable pain. Then suddenly her eyes lit up. She screamed hoarsely, "My lord, you have come to save me, have you not? Quickly kill this vile woman Yan Lingyuan, avenge me. I am in such pain, my lord, quickly save me." Shenqian walked up beside me and looked down at Nanwu. His gaze was icy cold. "You harmed Lingyuan. Your crime deserves death. How could I save you? The greatest regret of this lord's life is having ever known you, and having indulged you in hurting her. You deserve to die." Nanwu let out a cry of disbelief, opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. and with a thud collapsed to the ground. Living right there before us, she died of rage. I raised my brows slightly and stared at Shen Qian, my voice mildly sarcastic. Marquis Shen, to act against someone once dear to your heart, I am deeply impressed. The poison had not yet had time to take her life. A few of Shen Qian's words were sufficient to make her die of fury. What impressive methods! Shen Qian lowered his gaze. In the depths of his eyes shimmered an endless warmth. You honor, the great enmity has been avenged. Let me marry you again as my rightful wife. The betrothal gifts are already prepared. This time I will absolutely not abandon you again. Marry me again and stand with me at the altar. I frowned deeply, my voice was ice cold. Shen Qian, have you gone mad? Between you and me there is nothing left. There is nothing more to be said. I turned and walked out of the prison. Shen Qian hurried to follow. His eyes were full of grief. You honor, I truly repent. Not wishing to be entangled with him before so many people, and also unable to understand why he had suddenly changed so completely, I finally agreed, in the spirit of watching theater, to accompany him to a tea house. In the private room there was only me, Shen Qian, and my personal attendants. I would absolutely not leave myself alone with him. Shen Qian fell to his knees with a thud right before me, his eyes red with weeping. You honor, I was in the wrong before. I dare not beg your forgiveness. I only hope you will give me an opportunity to make it up to you. This time I will certainly treat you well. I will never let you suffer even half a measure of injustice. I listened unmoved inside. I only found it funny. Shen Qian, keep that sincerity for Nanwu. I want none of it. Shen Qian grew agitated and hurriedly explained. Nanwu was the late emperor's person. The late emperor had long been secretly scheming to strip me of my military power. Starting from the very first battle I won, he began his arrangements. At the time I did not know her true identity, which is how she was able to harm you. The late emperor had her approach me, beguile me, and then arranged a marriage for her, so that Nanwu would drive a wedge between us. Your father loved you as his very life. How could he possibly forgive the one who had hurt you? The late emperor used this as a pretext to punish me and take back military power. Later when the Xiongnu invaded, the late emperor had no choice but to return the military power to me. It was all arranged by the late emperor. All of it was the late emperor's fault. You honor, I beg you, forgive me. Only afterward did I realize that the person I truly loved was you, and I had long since seen through Nanwu's true face. The reason I did not kill her myself was precisely because I wanted to hand her over for you to deal with. After I saw through the truth, I never touched her again. You honor, I beg you, hit me, scold me, just do not treat me with such indifference. I listened quietly to all of this. Inside my mind came sudden clarity. No wonder the late emperor had so persistently shielded Nanwu. It turned out she was someone he had arranged. Having heard all those old matters, I lightly brushed off my sleeve and rose to my feet. I have heard enough. What has passed, let it pass. From now on we are strangers. I hope you will not come looking for me again. Do not disturb the peaceful life I live. I do not like you, not one bit. Even the sight of you makes me sick. Sincerity that comes too late is worth less than grass. All those cutting words, all those old wounds, they could not be erased by 2 simple words of apology. Shen Qian's expression showed extreme agony, his tears would not stop flowing, and his hoarse voice begged, You honor, I truly repent. Do not leave me. Get out. I spat out one ice-cold word and did not bother to glance back. I turned and walked out of the tea house. Outside the door, the scene of the city was flourishing and busy. I drew a deep breath. It was over, everything was finally over. In the days that followed, Shen Xian sent person after person to bring gifts to my door, begging forgiveness. I found it only irritating and sent bodyguards to give him a thorough beating. Sure enough, he dared not appear again. Afterward I went again to the great state temple to pray for blessings. This time I brought many more bodyguards. In the abbot's meditation chamber, I met Fu Lingxiao. The abbot quietly withdrew, leaving the space to us. I was slightly surprised and saluted. Your subject daughter pays respects to your majesty. I thank your majesty for standing up for your subject daughter and granting her the opportunity for vengeance. Your subject daughter has always wanted to come in person to express her gratitude. She had not expected to encounter your majesty here. Fu Lingxiao extended a hand to help me rise, his smile warm and composed. In truth, it was I who came to seek out Miss Yen. I have a matter I wish to request. I was slightly taken aback. What could an emperor possibly need to ask of me? Your majesty may speak freely. Your subject daughter owes your majesty a life. Even if she must be ground to bones and dust, she will not refuse. Do not say such things about death. Fu Lingxiao's brow furrowed in mild displeasure. He was silent for a long while before he slowly opened his mouth. The court ministers are pressing me to establish an empress. I have thought it over carefully. I find that only Miss Yen is the most suitable person. I was momentarily stunned and softly called out, Your Majesty. Fu Lingxiao's gaze was clear and luminous. His expression was serene and composed. Miss Yen, please first hear me out. I grew up in the rear palace. I am well accustomed to the sight of scheming, deception, and deep malice. From the time I was young, I swore to myself I would take only one wife in this lifetime and absolutely take no concubines. Miss Yen, I come today to ask your will. If you are unwilling, that is also fine. I will absolutely not make things difficult. I gazed quietly into his eyes. In their depths my reflection was mirrored. His gaze was truly warm, yet it also concealed loneliness, solitude, and melancholy. For reasons I could not explain, my heart felt an unwillingness to refuse. He had once saved my life, had also stood up for me and severely punished Nanwu, had even issued an imperial decree to execute her. And now he had come in person to ask my will. He was the most exalted person under heaven, yet he had still done all of this. It was truly no easy thing. The fragrance of incense filled the still, serene air. I softly reminded him, Your Majesty, this subject daughter has had a previous marriage. Fu Lingxiao shook his head with a slight smile. No matter. Miss Yen deserves the finest person in the world. Shen Xian was not a worthy match. I could not help but smile quietly. That remark praised me, and at the same time praised himself. In the end I gave a slight nod of assent. On that usually cold face of Fu Lingxiao's, a warm, gentle smile blossomed. Warmth seemed to radiate from around his whole person. He said, Half a year from now I will line the Tenli road with red silk and escort you to become empress with all glory and ceremony. I looked at his smile. Inside my heart rose ripple upon ripple, a feeling I had never known before. The corner of my lip too curved up slightly. Leaving the meditation chamber, my heart was still light and floating. When I returned home, I recounted the matter to my parents. My father laughed heartily. His face showed not the slightest trace of surprise. His Majesty truly has discerning eyes. He knows how to cherish our precious treasure. My mother took my hand in hers. Her face was full of reluctance. His Majesty asked your consent without coercion. He is a good man. Only mother cannot bear to part from you. After you enter the palace, mother will not be able to see you every day. She wept softly as she spoke. I too reddened at the eyes and threw myself into her arms. My father, seeing the two of us like this, gently consoled us. There, do not be sad. In the future we can still go to the palace to visit you. Half a shirchen later, an imperial decree arrived at our household, conferring upon me the title of Empress and fixing the wedding for half a year hence. I hear that Miss Yen was previously married. She was already divorced and still got to marry the emperor as Empress? Is she not the luckiest person in the world to have caught the emperor's eye? I heard Daisy repeat the chatter from the streets outside and could not suppress a smile. I truly was fortunate to have met someone like His Majesty, righteous and upright. Word came that the 100 civil and military officials had repeatedly submitted memorials advising Fu Lingxiao to revoke the decree. Fu Lingxiao severely reprimanded them all, after which no one dared say another word. He spoke of this with me, dissatisfaction unconcealed in his expression. They overstepped, nosing into my personal affairs every day. They need something else to keep them occupied. I stepped closer, circling my arms around his firm waist. Ah Xiao, thank you. As the days and months flowed by, I went before the Grand Empress Dowager. The old woman sat with a worn, drawn appearance. No trace remained of her former gracious composure. She looked at me with a face full of contempt. Why are you here? Who welcomed you? I looked at her calmly. You showed no discernment between right and wrong and once wished to punish me. But in respect for your being Xiao's ancestor, I will not take your life. From this day forward, stay peacefully here and recite your sutras. The Grand Empress Dowager sneered coldly. As Empress you should be taking in consorts to fill the rear palace for the Emperor, yet you are so jealous that you leave him with only you. You are not worthy of being Empress. Besides, you were once married before. The Emperor is truly foolish. How is someone like you worthy of being Empress? I smiled faintly. That is not something for the Grand Empress Dowager to trouble herself over. Think instead about how to live out the remaining days in this palace. I will not take your life, but the matter of your food and clothes and accommodations will need to be reconsidered. Fu Lingxiao walked in unhurriedly and sat beside me, his gaze cold as he looked at the Grand Empress Dowager. The rear palace is mine. You need not trouble yourself to say more. The Grand Empress Dowager's face flushed furiously red. Emperor, how can you be so muddled? You should be bearing heirs for the imperial family. How can you have only one consort? Even if I once wronged you, I am still your ancestor. How dare you be unfilial to me? Fu Lingxiao said coldly. Whether I am unfilial or not, have you not already felt it sufficiently these past few days? Behave yourself going forward and stay here quietly. The Grand Empress Dowager shook with fury and screamed, You are an unfilial wretch. For the sake of one woman you imprison me. The two of you both deserve to die. Fu Lingxiao and I clasped hands and left the Grand Empress Dowager's palace, paying no heed to the curses hurled at our backs. She had once wished to beat me with a rod. Out of respect for her old age I did not beat her back, only made her kneel. Day by day she withered a little more. I nestled in Fu Lingxiao's embrace. In the end I could not refrain from asking the doubt in my heart. Ah Xiao, why are you so good to me? He said, When I was small, I was bullied by my imperial brothers. You saw it and intervened, and gave me a bottle of medicine. That winter was the warmest winter of my life. I was slightly dazed. Did that really happen? He continued, "You were the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter, I was only a humble prince. Every time I saw you at a palace banquet, I dared not approach, afraid of implicating you." So he had harbored feelings for me from early on. I shook my head. "You were not humble. Ah Xiao, I will not allow you to speak of yourself like that." He smiled softly and held me closer. "I had once wished to marry you as my wife, but at the time I was busy scheming and plotting and dared not act rashly. The late emperor harbored suspicion of your father. I all the more dared not propose marriage, afraid the late emperor would use it as a pretext to accuse the Grand Tutor of plotting rebellion. After the late emperor arranged your marriage to Shenxian, I lay awake every night hating myself for not having brought everything to an end sooner. I watched you marry him, watched him treat you with cold indifference and oppression. I hated myself for not being able to kill him. In a contest for the throne, 9 die and 1 survives. I dared not imagine what bitterness and wounds he had endured, what injuries he had sustained, having to constantly feign restraint and control from childhood to adulthood. It must have been exhausting. I tightened my arms around his waist. If I had not dissolved the marriage with Shenxian, what then? He lowered his voice slightly. If he had treated you well, I would have concealed my heart forever. If he had treated you ill, I would have found a way to make the two of you dissolve the marriage. Fortunately, he did not know how to treasure you. It gave me the chance to marry you as my wife. I had quietly laid quite a few schemes to make him suffer. On that Qixi night, when he still dared come looking for you, if not for respect for his military contributions, I would have had him killed with a single blade then and there. Hearing Ah Xiao speak those words of jealousy, I could not help but bloom into a bright smile. "I like you too. The very first time I met you at the Great State Temple, I fell for you at first sight. Only at the time I had not yet understood my own feelings. You looked so cold then, quite the performance." Fu Lingxiao murmured in that moment, his voice slightly husky. "With us entwined close together, I dared not approach you casually, afraid of being improper, afraid of frightening you away. I went to hold memorial rites for my mother and saw you being ambushed. My heart nearly stopped. Thank heaven I arrived in time. The late emperor refused to stand up for you. I was furious, but at the time the plans had reached a critical stage and I could do nothing. The Grand Empress Dowager then deliberately made things difficult for you because of Nanwu. I could only quietly punish Nanwu on your behalf in the shadows. Even though I was not favored, I was still a prince. The late emperor could not punish me for that." I smiled gently. So Ah Xiao had been infatuated with me for a long time. I had even thought that if he did not love me, we would simply be a couple who treated each other with mutual respect and respect. That would have been sufficient. Fu Lingxiao drew me close in a tight embrace. "Only I understand all that is good about you, honor, Ah Xiao," and I talked through the night, pouring out our hearts completely. The bond between us grew ever closer and warmer. Shenxian did not marry again. Every time he caught sight of me he would reveal an expression of anguish and grief. Later he went to the frontier and never returned to the capital. I gave him no more thought. Day by day I stroked my cat and admired the flowers. My parents and elder brother occasionally came to the palace to visit. As the years flowed by, I gave birth to a son and a daughter. The prince was conferred the title of Crown Prince. The princess was given the title of Princess Luan. The feeling between Ah Xiao and me did not grow faint with the years. On the contrary, it deepened with each passing day. I had gazed upon all the most beautiful scenery in the world, but what I loved most was still Ah Xiao's eyes. In his eyes were gathered 10,000 stars, and they held only me. Afterward the winds were sweet, the rain was sweet, the snow was sweet. all things in my eyes were sweet. With him at my side, I feared nothing more, the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.